Hey, welcome back, listeners, viewers, and everyone else. We are here with another episode of the Coalition9 podcast. I am your host, Aaron Eggert. My guest today blends a practical, relatable, and holistic approach combined with an expertise in communication and psychology to help leaders leverage their genius and overcome obstacles to ignite the best in themselves and their teams. Let's do this thing and share the journey of my friend, Heather Heefner. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to be here, Aaron.
Yeah, that was one of their longer openings because I took it right off of your prep sheet and you said it. Obviously being in communications, you articulated that so well. I'm like, I'm just copying and pasting that thing and dumping it right into my opening.
That's great.
Yeah, I love it.
My job to make things sound decent.
And you did it. So case in point, it sounded pretty good and it came right from you. So we're off to a really good start and you made me sound great. So thank you very much. A little bit free consulting on your end that you didn't even know that you did. I just feel like, we've met a few years ago through a mutual friend, Nancy Nelson Flom, and you guys were walking buddies. And I just felt like that was your time had come. The work that you do is so relevant for so many of our members, regardless of what stage that they're at. I know you typically work with CEOs and things like that, but I think it's kind of transcended that. And we're going to get into what your offering is. But this podcast was made for you, right? I feel like you're the type of person that more people need to know. You're not out there in front of people like crazy on social media, posting every day and stuff. And so you're the sleepy diamond in the rough that that people need to learn about you and all your offerings and everything like that. And then the journey that's taken place to get you here. So I'm ready to dive in if you are.
Sure. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
So born and raised, a little bit of a different born versus raised. Tell me a little bit about born and raised and your upbringing a little bit.
Well, I've been thinking about this because I knew I'd be on this podcast. And I feel very fortunate, Aaron, about how I was born and raised. I grew up in Minneapolis, in South Minneapolis, right on the shores of Lake Calhoun, Dave McCoska, as now named. Yeah. And I grew up with parents who were both physicians and they're hippie physicians. So we were all about free to be you and me, baby. I grew up in the 70s. So we were free range kids. We're able to be super creative, had really interesting dinner conversations. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. We were all very well supported emotionally and financially. So I'm really grateful for my upbringing in many ways. Of course, there are things that are not so great, but that is the human condition. Right. But all 3 of my siblings and I, we were raised to be ourselves and to not compromise our passions and our hearts. None of us were forced into medicine. None of us are doctors.
Oh, really? No, so no one took the family path of going into medicine?
No, my daughter is. My daughter's in medical school. So it skipped a generation.
Skipped a generation. Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Well, and so I love the fact how you teed that up with, they're physicians, which, I think a role or their job or whatever is one part of their identification. But also, too, I love the fact that you just threw out there that they were hippies. And so I think that term, now I think we're on 80 some, 90 some episodes of this podcast. I don't think I've ever had anybody that has come right out and said like, hey, I was raised by quote, air quotes, hippies or whatever. But like, what does that mean to you? Like, I think that hippie culture, quote unquote, hippie culture is I think people have kind of forgotten more than they remember in some respects about that time and that place. So paint me a little bit of a picture of what that means and what that was like.
Well, so I should qualify it. In their hearts, they were hippies, but they didn't look like hippies. They were both doctors. They lived in a big house. They drove nice cars. My dad didn't have long hair, but their philosophy was very much do what you need to do. You be who you are. We're all free. Very, very interested in the arts. Very interested in they were always exploring things like taking musical instruments themselves, instrument lessons themselves. We were always doing that too. They would have random parties where all these people would just come together and drink a lot and smoke a lot of pot. And we were we were always safe as kids, but we had the greatest time because these adults were so friendly.
Yeah. And I think
um,
it doesn't, it kind of feels like it creates a culture in your family of like exploration and curiosity. And I think, one, I think growing up in the 70s, that was either a thing and very probably very minuscule, the amount of people that ran their families like that. It was probably a
yeah.
little bit more structured and stuff. So that right there creates a little bit of an anomaly in the way you were brought up. Did other kids, like when you brought friends over and stuff like that, was it kind of mind boggling to them of like they were probably living in Archie Bunker's world where you're living in
Yeah,
like,
well, it depended.
um,
Like,
yeah,
it's a good question. We went to Lake Country School, which was now it's a very she Montessori school. When we were there, it was a startup. Like, we all went and cleaned the school because
mm,
there was no extra help. Sometimes the teachers weren't getting paid. I mean, it was a very scrappy school, and we went, and it was amazing. So our friends from Lake Country were a lot like us. So that was all good. But our neighborhood friends, we had a lot of Catholics in our neighborhood,
uh,
and they didn't know what to do with us.
yeah,
um,
right.
yeah, and we were friends with them. Like, the Shays were my best friend, neighborhood friends, and we would go over there for fish night on Fridays and mind our manners. We did learn manners.
Good.
So it was, the Shays didn't know what to do with us, but we were all friends. We all, like, one of the things my parents taught us is to love everyone, to
Mm.
accept everyone, to do our best not to judge people. So I'm really grateful for those lessons.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are lessons that I think I'm hoping more people are adopting here, especially
Mm-hmm.
with what is going on in our world, I think as a whole. But I also feel like that's one thing that if people can teach their kids that, I think if more kids were taught that at a younger age, we'd be in a little bit of a different place. Right. And I
I
feel
think so
like,
too.
yeah, and you're a perfect example of just, how you can you live your life, you get to a certain point, and then all of a sudden you're continuing to be a positive contributor to society with that mindset, and probably trickle down to your kids. And so I do feel like those are generation changing lessons that I think that you can
Yeah,
learn as a young person, right?
I think so
Now,
too.
as you started to grow a little bit older, some maturity came going into high school and stuff. What were some of the activities that you were into, and all the stuff that kind of kept you when you were growing up?
Well, in high school, I transitioned to a new school, and to be honest with you, Aaron, that was a rough time. My dad came out of the closet and said, "I'm gay," and we all said, "What does that mean?" Because it
Right.
was early '80s, and so I was sort of a wreck in high school. So the reason I bring that up is because I could tell you, yeah, I was on the tennis team and I was on the track captain, which is all true. But what kept me grounded in high school really was I dove into academics, 100% focus on academics in a way that was a distraction from what was going on at home. But it helped me develop grit
Yeah, right.
because that there's nothing like hard work.
Yeah.
So I decided to dive into the hard work in academics. So
And
that was my focus in high school.
yeah, and I mean that's going to have that news is going to have just kind of a ripple effect on your whole family, and I think you've got choices on how you want to lean into that, or even just kind of maybe step back a little bit and kind of let things play out and stuff. But I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you sharing that, because that's another thing that I've never heard, on this podcast, obviously. But I think, if you look, I'm 47 years old, so I was more like, I didn't know if I experienced the 80s the same way that a lot of people did, but I just think that the 80s were such a time to where it just opened up, and there was a lot of other freedoms that were coming through to where, I'm hoping that it just made him feel safe that he was able to share that, and I'm sure there was a ton
Yeah,
of backstories that went into all that stuff, and
ton of
those are the things that make you, right?
totally. And I
Yeah.
think it shaped my career because I learned the power of empathy.
Mm.
Because through knowing my dad's story and his dilemma, he didn't choose this. He fought it for years. That's why he became a husband and dad. But he really didn't want to be gay, and so hearing just living through his story with him as a family, he was always a great dad, and my mom was always supportive of him. Was very kind of as good as it could be, if you will, given the situation. And my mom really did teach us to be empathetic. So that's a huge theme of my profession in communication. I
Totally.
teach leaders how to communicate with empathy. And I think it originated there.
Did you feel like you were that like when you were growing up, and let's just go right into high school, like the way that you were brought up, a couple of these things that were part of your family and just all this stuff. Did you feel like you I'm going to use again air quotes here, but did you fit in really good? Like were you like did that the way that you looked at the world, I think, was probably just a little bit different around, especially like, you love everybody, and you take everyone at face value, and then you combine that with some of the news around, your dad and what he was working through. Were you able to just did you hold that in and then just show up different, or were you and you just were unapologetic in who you were?
It was pretty much just me. And I had a lot of friends in high school in all different groups. So I was friends with the super popular kids and invited to all those parties. And I was friends with the kids who were playing D&D. And I never went to D&D because I don't get it, but I liked those guys. So
Yeah.
I just, I just liked everybody. I still do. I think that's the benefit of my coaching too, is because I coach all sorts of people, Aaron, all sorts of walks of life.
Yeah.
And I really just really like everyone I meet. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that.
Did you end up going to college? So I have to assume, doing what you do, you ended up going to college. Where did you end up going for school?
So yeah, I was 100% expected in my family. There was not not going to college was not a conversation.
Yeah.
So I went for my first 2 years, I went to school in Colorado, and I didn't love it. So I did a year abroad in China in 1991 when it was right after Tiananmen Square, which once again, my parents probably really should not have let me go, but I went. I was martial law. I knew Chinese, so that was okay.
Oh.
I wasn't fluent yet, but that was my goal, to get fluent. And then I finished at the U of M. I did design communication at the U of M. So that I did that. That's my degrees from the good old U of M.
And then did you do any post-education after your undergrad, or did you just focus in on all that?
Yeah, I started a graduate degree program at Kent State in design. And then by then I had one baby, and I got pregnant with another baby, and it was a really hard pregnancy. So I couldn't handle graduate school, being a mom, full-time job. So I quit.
Yeah, that's just I mean, I'm sure you wanted to be a mom first, right?
Yeah, that was a priority. And,
Yeah.
that's I know you kind of go along the timeline, but when I became a mom, I quit my Yamamoto Moss job because it was too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's dig into that here. Let's take a quick break here, because I do want to get into that. I want to spend a hefty amount of time on the work that you do now, because I think, your journey has led you to this, and makes you kind of a wizard and a genius when it comes to these things, especially on the communication and blending that with psychology side of things. So let's take a quick second here. We'll listen to some of our community supporters for a few minutes, and then we're going to come right back here with Heather.
Leading a growing organization means knowing when to bring in strategic expertise. At All-in-One Accounting, we understand that your financial needs evolve as you scale. We're more than just accountants. We're trusted partners who align our expertise with your vision, driving sustainable growth through expert financial leadership. From day-to-day bookkeeping to high-level strategy, we help you grow profitability, protect your assets, and amplify your impact. Consider us your partner for both immediate financial clarity and long-term strategic success. Connect with us at allinoneaccounting.com.
Kaisa Wealth Management treats each client like a member of the family. Acting as your personal CFO, we are fiercely devoted to your financial prosperity. At Kaisa, our wealth strategies are aligned with your core values, creating a wealth plan centered around the legacies you wish to create. This is our Kaisa commitment. Our wealth strategies are dynamic and tailor-made for your long-term goals, because as a family investment firm, excellence in service is not just a promise, it's our baseline. Whether it's selling a business, planning succession, creating a legacy, navigating life's changes like death and divorce, supporting executives on the move, planning for your retirement, or just preserving your family wealth, we are here for you. Find out how we can help to simplify your wealth at kaisawealth.com.
Security Bank and Trust has been a community supporter and the banking partner of Coalition9 since our inception.
One of my favorite things about partnering with Security Bank and Trust is that I have a significant relationship at multiple levels within the bank. From grabbing lunch and building a personal friendship with the president, Andy, to welcoming multiple employees as C9 members, to seeing Andy's smiling face when I swing by the Eden Prairie branch, they get relationships and the banking needs of a business like ours. Check them out at security-banks.com. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender. Security Bank and Trust. Growing together. The topic of talent is hot in organizations of any size, and I would argue none more than small to mid-sized businesses. That's why it's crucial to have a partner to help you navigate all the HR idiosyncrasies so you can focus on working on your business and not in it. Insperity is a full-service HR partner with a high-touch, high-tech platform helping owners work through challenges like employee retention, company culture, and benefits, just to name a few. Do yourself a favor and explore all they have to offer at Insperity.com. Insperity, HR that makes a difference. Barton, Walter & Cryer CPAs and Business Advisors is a full-service CPA firm providing premier accounting, tax, and consulting services to a wide variety of middle market and small businesses, primarily throughout the Twin Cities Metro and Upper Midwest. Drawing from diverse and varied experience with large Big Four organizations and boutique accounting firms, our team of CPAs and tax professionals delivers innovative, value-added solutions for our clients throughout personalized attention, diligence, and breadth of knowledge. From day one, we've built long-lasting relationships with our clients based on mutual trust and dedication to growth and long-term financial success. Our approach is client-centered. We make your goals our goals and deliver unparalleled service and support that exceeds expectations every time. Find out more at bwkaccounting.com. Tradition Capital Bank is a local bank that has the products and capabilities to service middle-market companies, nonprofits, and their owners, employees, and families by offering a high-touch approach paired with customizable solutions. Think of them as your nimble allies serving with generosity, care, and precision. Tradition starts with the assumption that there's always more to learn, try, and discover, aiming to find the best yes for whomever they have the privilege of working beside. From a foundation of trust, Tradition takes disciplined, smart risks to help people grow beyond what they even thought possible. Tradition Capital Bank is the second largest privately owned bank headquartered in the Twin Cities, and with locations in Edina, Wayzata, and North Oaks, Minnesota, alongside their office in Scottsdale, Arizona, Tradition Capital Bank is committed to big bank offerings with a small bank ethos. Let their team be the friend you need in your next financial move. All right, we're back here with Heather Heefner. We just went through the educational side and through education side, and some curveballs you threw at me. So that was really good. I mean, I love it. And that, again, like these are the things in life that just kind of inform who you become, right? And you're continually evolving. You already alluded to the fact that your first gig was at Yamamoto Moss, and I remember them. That is a amazing firm here. And so are they even still around?
They're Yamamoto now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And they dropped the Moss part. So what was your first role there, and what did you focus on?
So right out of college, I was a junior graphic designer at Yamamoto Moss, made $18,000 a year, and I worked like at least 70 hours a week. It was grueling, but super fun. I worked directly with Hideki Yamamoto, and the projects were really engaging and energizing. I learned a ton I majored in design, so I learned the practice of it and the printing industry. So I worked there for 5 years and moved into designer space. And then when Ariana was born, my oldest, the one who's in medical school now, I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle those hours. And they weren't going to let me not work those hours. So I quit and I started Dart Communication version 1.
1.0, right? The original.
Yeah.
What year was that? Just so we can level set us.
That was in 1996. Oh yeah, she was born in 1996. Right. I do know that.
Yeah. And so was the idea then when you were going to focus on that was going to be your own design firm, but then allow you to do both the blending of being a mom first and then just keeping some income coming in and keeping your fingers on the pulse of design and creativity?
Yes and no. So I didn't want to be a mom first. I was never like a stay-at-home mom type of person. And to be honest with you, and Ariana knows this, she came 5 years early. So according to my timeline, and I love her to death, like, I wouldn't change anything now, but
Yep.
I knew I couldn't work at Yamamoto and be a mom. It didn't fit. So I started Dark Communication. I'd always wanted to start a business. The other thing I didn't, because I had such a, upbringing like I did, we didn't have rules. We didn't have structure, which maybe wasn't a great thing as a kid, but I was a terrible employee, Aaron. Terrible. I broke all sorts of rules. I thought they were ridiculous.
Yeah, I think to me, like you're probably a lot like me in that I just have a little bit of a problem with authority. I just there's something in my head that clicks when someone tells me to do something. I'm just like, nope, I need to figure it out on my own or whatever. And to me, there's a term that I've adopted, and I can't remember who said it, but I'm terminally unemployable. And I feel like, you're probably terminally unemployable. You just always need to work for yourself.
100%. 100%. I see what needs to be done in my own opinion and I do it.
Yeah.
It's not always right, but so it was a good time. My husband was a high school teacher. He still is. And so that was steady income, not a lot of income, but decent insurance, all that stuff. So, and I was very altruistic at the time. So at Yamamoto, I got tired of designing for companies I didn't think were ethical, in my own opinion. And so I decided when I started Dark Communication version 1, I would only design for nonprofits.
Oh, yeah.
So I redid the whole Children's Home Society whole branding system. I did Catholic Charity's first website ever. So this is how old I am. I worked with teams of people. I brought subcontractors in. So I wasn't doing all that work by myself. It was really fun. I did a lot of work with the University of St. Thomas School of Business. So that was, Dark Communication number 1 was a graphic design agency. And that I did for quite a number of years. And I had 3 babies in that time. And it was a very busy lifestyle.
And, you dedicated a healthy amount of your time balanced with, doing that work with raising 4 daughters. And so let's jump ahead. You already established we're not going to have a timeline here. So let's just jump ahead to the family stuff. So tell me about, you wrote down for me what your daughters are doing. It's insane. Like like, holy smokes. So tell me a little bit about all the effort that you put into that and what they're tracking to do now.
Well, so Aaron, I'm also an all or nothing kind of person. So the reason I stopped Dark Communication version 1 is because Bethany, my 3rd daughter, got a brain injury when she was 2. And it was clear that she needed full-time care. And my mama heart was just like, okay, I love working and I'm not going to be great being a full-time mom, but I need to do this. And then, so I stayed at home with Bethany, helping her. And then the other kids were not happy in school. So I homeschooled. For 10 years. So it was all in. Yeah. We had a 4th child, Sophie. And, I really think parenting, not everybody has to homeschool or should homeschool. I don't even, I've had regrets about it for sure. But I put my all into parenting. And one of the concepts I love, and my parents taught me this, is the concept of Tov. And Hank, bear with me because it's relevant. Mm-hmm. It's a Jewish concept. I'm not Jewish, but it's, I studied with a rabbi for a while to understand the Hebrew words of things because it's interesting to me. And if you ask a Jewish person what Tov means, they'll say it means good, which is true. The original meaning of Tov means the seeds of good within us. So if you look at a green pepper and cut it in half and you see all those seeds in there, those are all seeds that have the potential to grow into a new green pepper plant. And according to Tov Jewish tradition, we have those within us. Seeds planted within us, we're born with them, and they grow throughout life. So as a parent, I thought, okay, my job is to see what's growing. Like, what is in this little person that needs to grow? Yeah. And how can I nurture it? How can I give it good soil? I'm not going to be able to do all of them because there's a lot of Tov in there. And I might even inadvertently squish one. But that was my job, raising them to the best of my ability. So that's what I tried to do. And oh my gosh, Aaron, they are all so different. It's phenomenal how different they are.
I can only imagine with, well, one, putting that conscious effort into that thought process. One, I think, me being a non-parent, right? My wife and I don't have kids. Like, I think I just hear that, and I have so much
Mhm.
more faith in society of like how things, if more people took that perspective on raising and being that deliberate on that thought process, you should be so proud of that. I mean, I think, and then obviously it's contributed to them thriving
Yeah.
as young adults, and then we'll see what the future holds, right?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
but also like kind of to bring the thread of empathy throughout, like I learned empathy from my dad, but then when I was raising Bethany, I had to teach all the other girls and our friends about empathy because Bethany really struggled. She had a lot of tantrums, a lot of anxiety.
Hmm.
She couldn't learn because of her brain injury. So I did do a lot of teaching people about what was going on and helping people understand empathetically. So that's just been a thread. Now, good news, she graduated from Augsburg. She's trying to study for the LSATs. She doesn't test well. So that's just something she's working through.
Yeah. Wow. That is, I was going to ask, I didn't know if I was going to go overstep a line, but I'm glad that you teed
Mm.
that up to asking how Bethany is doing. But that's awesome. And so her journey continues, and she's got to figure out that I'm a terrible test taker too, but I figured some
Me
things out.
too.
You just never know how that'll all shake out, and
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, that's so. Was there a point in time? So you kind of wound, am I reading this right? That you kind of wound down the design aspect of what you were doing, really focused on raising the girls, and then coming out the other side is when true dark communications as we see it and is continuing to evolve.
Yeah.
So how long ago have you been now focused on dark communications?
So I started Dark Communication version 2 in 2015-16. And that's when my oldest went to college. So she went to McAllister, and I thought, oh, I have to pay for this. like, like
Yeah.
a teacher's
Yeah.
income doesn't cover that. so,
Right. Right.
um, so I started knocking on the doors of friends and colleagues I had, and I said, where is there a hole in the design market? Like, I'm officially unemployable, just so you know, but I do have skills. And so I'm just looking for opportunities. And they all said, our presentations are terrible. We don't know what we're saying. We don't know what other people are saying. The decks are a mess. So I actually started Dark Communication with helping people with their presentations. So it was communication in the sense that, yes, it was deck design, so it was design, but also helping people craft a message. Like, what are you trying to say? And why is this important? And then because of the empathy piece, who is your audience? What does your audience need to hear? What are they interested in? What's keeping them up at night? So I developed a whole story structure methodology of helping people create their presentations, which I still use. It's basically the hero's journey model. So I didn't make it up. I just adopted Joseph Campbell's ideas, made them into business presentations. And that's how Dark Communication version 2 started. And as you alluded to, it's expanded since then. So I'm not just doing
Yeah.
presentations.
Yeah. And frankly, now when I think about you in my head, I don't even put you in that bucket. I put you more as like the kind of the right hand person to the CEO, helping them
Yeah.
trying to. And I think there's so many, which I think is super necessary, right? I think myself included, is that you've got all these things going on in your head, and sometimes you just don't know how to articulate those and be thoughtful. And then also, by thoughtful, I mean, like, how is that going to be the most well received by stakeholders and anybody else that's on the other side of that? And so that's where I
Mm-hmm.
think about you in that context. But I also know that there's coaching that's probably involved in that. There's all sorts of things and so as we look at that, now is you're talking about the evolution. So beginning of March 2025, and we know maybe a year down the road or something like that, it'll all evolve. But what all is encompassed in dark communications as it sits right now?
Okay, so the majority of my work is what you talked about, where I help C-suite leaders and VPs as well communicate strategy and change. And that encompasses everything from if they're undergoing a huge change to crisis communication. So, for example, just last year, Polaris changed its whole way it worked with their dealers. So I worked with the leaders in that space to create a whole change narrative of, okay, dealers, this is how we're going to work with you now. And it was very empathetically based because the dealers actually didn't have a choice. How could you communicate this and make a story and narrative out of it for the dealers to understand and buy in? And then I also did change management coaching with those leaders. So that was very successful. They're continuing to use that communication. And that's an example of a big picture, contract I have with companies. But then also lately, I've been coaching my clients, my C-suite level clients, on how to communicate tariffs, because that's a hot topic right now, and have strategies about how to communicate in crisis. And, they'll just call me and hop on the phone and say, okay, wow, we just heard this news. What do we say to our team? Mm-hmm. So I'm a consultant in that space. So big change narratives, how do you communicate that? And then these little things, sometimes big things that pop up that people don't know how to communicate.
I almost feel like in some respects, and I might be butchering this a little bit, but it's almost like you, maybe not a full chief of staff, but I almost feel like a chief of staff kind of helps in like how that it's almost like a fractional chief of staff role, to where you're sitting on the hip pocket. And if there's things that are going to pop up, you ever have situations where you're working with a client and they call you at 2:00 in the morning and tell you that I need to have a statement ready to roll by 7 a.m. because of this went down or something like that?
Well, I have my ringer off at night because I value sleep.
Yes.
So, yeah. But I have had clients call me at 6 a.m. saying, oh, this is what has happened. But usually, Aaron, those calls are not so much, this is what I need to communicate. How do I communicate it? It's kind of going into that coaching space now, internal dilemmas. Like there's an employee who did something very toxic. Like, how do I handle it? So that's more that communication executive coaching. So that's another branch of dark communication. So we've got the narrative creation and the communication guidance, like I just talked about, and then the coaching. So they're like two different kind of wings, if you will, but the same umbrella of communication.
Do you find that they kind of tie into each other? So let's say someone hires you for coaching, do you just see that it kind of evolves into doing the communication work? And then if you're hired for doing the communication work, it sometimes evolves just into the coaching aspect of things?
Yeah, 100%. For example, I just finished a coaching contract with the gentleman in manufacturing. A lot of my clients are in manufacturing. And he came to me because he knew he was a really aggressive, really dominant person. And he got this feedback from his boss. And he needed help in a communication space of slowing down, listening, seeking to understand, being curious. That's like a skill set he wanted to develop that wasn't natural for him. So those were some of our goals. So I coached him through that process for 9 months. But in that space, I learned about a bunch of communication issues within the whole company. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I can help with that if you're interested. So I did end up helping with communication strategy within the company. And now I'm doing more coaching for that company, individual coaching like I did for this gentleman. So it sort of goes back and forth.
So if we've got, all right, so let's run this by me real quick here. So let's say you have someone listening to this who's very type A, is sometimes a bull in a china shop, like all of the things that probably this person identifies as. And so what are some early stage things that you coach on? Now, obviously, I don't want to sell the farm here, but I think maybe just a couple of little life hacks or something like that people that you at least just from the very onset that people can work on just to help evolve that a little bit of being, obviously leveling up their EQ and being a little bit more aware of how they communicate.
Yeah, good question. There are many things, right? So I have a lot of strategies, and then, as a coach, if someone want to be coached. Yeah. So I'll tell you 2 strategies I give right away, and they typically choose one of these to practice throughout the week before we meet again. The types of people you're talking about are super fast paced. So they need to slow down. So the first strategy I teach them is to box breathe, which is a military strategy of calming down your amygdala. And it's breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4. And so when they're in a meeting and they want to answer, they have the answer, don't say it, box breathe.
Mm.
It's going to kill them, but they can do it. And
Yeah.
they notice if they're able to just take a week and slow down every time they want to say something, box breathe.
Yeah.
And they come back amazed. They're like, oh my gosh, I box breathe and you wouldn't believe the ideas that my team gave me. And so it opens up their awareness of how fast they're moving.
Yeah.
And opens up their awareness of that other people have ideas too. It's a very wonderful exercise for people with that type to do.
Yeah.
And the second thing is I have a list of curiosity-based questions. So people who go that fast, they're really smart typically, and they really get a lot done. So I really honor that. And other people find it too fast. So if this person can just slow down a little bit and be curious, like, hey, tell me more about that. Or what did you mean by that? People are like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then they feel like they have permission to speak.
I remember earlier on in my sales career, I did some sales training, and a lot of it was around, it was because I used to be much different than I am now, I am type A and I do identify with a lot of those things, but I've just kind of figured out some things. And one of the things that I remember being kind of coached on from a sales perspective, which I think everybody sells, and probably even, there's these CEOs that you're working with are probably selling ideas or selling, something. So this probably is, it probably aligns, but, blending both sales and then leadership. And I still do this to this day, is asking myself 3 questions before I respond. Should this be said? Should this be said by me? And should this be said by me now? And I think those, like, almost like the box breathing thing, right? You're allowing yourself that time to respond rather than react. And there's just so much power in that. And, whether if it's a tool like what you shared or even what I said, it's just, I think what it comes down to is just, like 100% of what you alluded to, just slow down. You just got to kind of catch your breath a little bit and just, and be thoughtful about what you're going to say rather than just whatever's locked and loaded.
Yeah. I like that strategy. Should this
and
be
I think,
said?
Yeah. Should this be said? Should this be said by me? And should this be said by me now? And I'm also, so, all right. So let's take a little bit of a departure from that. Are you a meditator?
I am.
And do you promote as some type of meditation or some kind of mindfulness or anything like that? Obviously you're talking about the breathing, and that's kind of why it kind of popped up in my head when you're talking about that, because, whether it be Wim Hof or some other kind of departure breathing is a huge part of a meditation practice. Do you promote meditation practices or whether that be pure meditation or based on their faith, prayer, or something like that people should be using as part of their daily routine?
Yes, I do. And I'm very respectful of people's different faith traditions or, spaces where they are at with, people come to the table in very different ways with spirituality or lack of spirituality. And I'm very respectful of that. But the research shows that meditation is enormous for balancing, and people are so stressed out right now. It's just, people are so stressed out. They're so lonely. I mean, these are American statistics. And so a practice of meditation or prayer or whatever you want to call it is very important. So even when I'm working with mid-level managers, I do work with some mid-level managers on communication coaching, that comes up because they're so stressed out. They don't know how to make a decision. They're disabled from making a decision because their mind is going 1,000 miles an hour, and they have all these negative thoughts, and they're sort of naysaying themselves.
Yeah.
And the only way to kind of get a control of that is to be aware of your thoughts and to let your thoughts float by like you do in meditation.
Yeah.
So I have lots of different practices depending on people's spirituality.
Yeah.
So I ask them, and so if they're Catholic, I have some stuff from St. Teresa of Avila.
Yeah.
And I love her. I'm not Catholic, but I love her, so I have tools for people depending on where they are.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody, regardless of what stage, they could use kind of a right-hand person to help kind of, articulate better and be thoughtful about, how they respond to things. And So I think to your point, like people are going through a lot, right? There's a lot of pressure right now. I think obviously where we're in, whether it be geopolitical or just society in general and all that stuff, that plays a role in it. I do think we're still healing mentally from COVID. And I think, social isolation, whether it be, C9 became a thing, through COVID. We were a thing beforehand, but we really threw gas on that fire because I think everyone's social isolation and the loneliness that's involved in whether it be leadership, entrepreneurship, or just plain old life, and all of those things. So now, as you're starting to look at this, and these things are becoming more prevalent, and the narrative around mental health is becoming more and more mainstream. How are you building your business into the future to be able to affect as many people as you possibly can in a positive manner?
So I have started developing some workshops to be able to reach more people. And they're all in the communication space around how to help each other know each other and respect each other and give each other grace. So, for example, I give a workshop called Crucial Conversations. And I just did this with 70 engineers at Tenant Company. And we divided it. So there were about 15 or 20 in each class. And the focus there was understanding each other's personality style. So we did the DISC profile. And then teaching people how to have those crucial conversations they need to have to drive an idea forward, knowing personality types and using psychology tips that I learned. I'm not a psychologist, but my dad was a psychiatrist. So we had a lot of conversations around the dinner table. Not that that qualifies me, but all these books are.
I was just going to say, I hate business books, but I love human behavior books and psychology books because I think, I'm in the people business, the human business. You're in the human business. I think understanding the people we serve is something that is, and information is so much more attainable now. Where before you had to go to school. Now, you got people like Adam Grant and Simon Sinek and Malcolm Gladwell. It's some of my favorites that I think are putting out new books and podcasts all the time. Always learning. Yeah.
So I totally draw on those three, and also Brene Brown and Carol Dweck Growth Mindset. And I, like, for example, in this Crucial Conversations class, I taught something from Brene Brown, which is, let's say you have a conflict. Let's say there's a product that is overpriced and it's overpriced right now and it's late. And that's the problem that you have to solve for. Oftentimes here's the problem. This is the pen. You and I, Aaron, this is the problem between us. We disagree. It becomes between us. Like, this is a problem in between us. And then it gets personal and it gets emotional and heated. We're really just talking about a problem. It's a product. It's not us. It's a product. So to take this issue and put it in front of us. So like, we're sitting on the same side of the table. We're looking at this problem. We're looking at it as a challenge, like the growth mindset, and showing up with curiosity. Mm-hmm. Then we can solve for it.
Yeah.
Tell me your idea about this. You tell me your idea. Maybe I don't agree. Okay, tell me more. I don't quite understand. Mm-hmm. You tell me more. Maybe I understand. Oh, okay, I understand your point of view. This is where I don't agree with you. Can I explain this to you? Mm-hmm. Yes. I explain what I'm confused about, but we're just looking at it together from this neutral perspective. We're both curious. We're on the same team. How do we solve this problem?
Yeah.
So we did a lot of role play around that. It was really fun.
Yeah. I was just going to say, like, even just putting a label on something like, hey, this is not the problem. This is a product. Like, labeling it different even changes your whole perspective of how you look at whatever that is, that challenge, problem, whatever, by looking at it as being a thing rather than it being something that is a rift between people or something like that. That way you kind of move off the solution a little bit and seek to understand. I love that. I mean, and I can see that being so powerful in small groups too, because then I think it creates a ripple effect from a teamwork standpoint so that everyone's on the same page walking out the door.
I think is powerful. So that's where I'm growing my business because, I was able to impact 70 people. And then I asked the leader of the team, how did this impact, your job 3 months after the workshop or so? And he said, wow, I have so much time to actually work on strategy because I don't have my teams coming to me with problems that they could actually work out themselves. Mm. And then the team members felt really empowered. Like, they didn't have a lot of people, they either flee from a potential argument or they fight.
Yeah.
And so much of that was diminished because they had the tools. And I gave them a whole bunch of resources. We had posters all over the place. Wiley Disc has an online platform. You can look at each other's profiles and figure out how to communicate with each other. So they had all these tools. So that type of thing makes a really big impact. And I'm excited to do that more with people.
Great. Good. All right. So when we wrap up 9 questions, that'll be an opportunity for you to share where people can find you and stuff like that. I got a feeling there's going to be some people when we'll put all your stuff in show notes so that people can click on your website and learn more about you and stuff like that. But we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back here with Heather. We're going to dive into 9 questions. I have I think I did a good job of tying in some questions I was going to ask through here. And I just held off on a couple of things because I think they're going to actually come through 9 questions. So I'm excited to dive into that and paint a little bit more of a picture of who you are, Heather.
Are you a sales leader looking to take your skills to the next level so you can help your team grow and drive even more revenue? Let's face it, when most sales leaders got promoted from a salesperson to a sales leader, you didn't get much training or tools or best practices. Nobody taught you about how to define strategy or gave you best practices around hiring and training. Nobody told you the best ways to coach and really develop people or driving accountability or performance management or forecasting. I could go on and on. If you want to learn best practices in these areas and more, and you want to learn from experts and your peers so you can grow, go to www.pivataladvisors.com and specifically check out our sales leader community called the Pivotal Peak Alliance. We would love to talk to you.
United Healthcare is dedicated to helping people live healthier lives and making the health system work better for everyone by simplifying the healthcare experience, meeting consumer health and wellness needs, and sustaining trusted relationships with care providers. UHC is continually focused on building a modern, high-performing health system via improved access, affordability, outcomes, and experiences. With a network of over 1.6 million physicians and healthcare professionals in over 6,000 hospitals, United Healthcare is dedicated to connecting employers and their employees to better health by offering quality benefits designed for affordability. For more information, visit United Healthcare at www.uhc.com. United Healthcare, helping people live healthier lives. Regardless if you're a startup just figuring things out or a medium-sized organization with a full team, having a legal partner by your side is crucial. Seiler Law is fiercely loyal to their clients and are passionate about removing headaches and roadblocks that can pop up during the growth of your business. Whether you need general outside counsel, are planning a business transaction, or even need someone to guide you through the estate planning process, the team at Seiler Law are the advocates for you. Visit seilerlaw.com to learn more. Seiler Law, where experience meets pragmatism. Versique Executive, Professional, and Interim Recruiting is an award-winning, locally owned hiring and placement firm based in Minnesota. With specialized practice areas across our 3 divisions, Versique delivers a tailored experience to a wide range of industries. What sets us apart is our team of recruiters, seasoned professionals who have worked in the very fields they now hire for, providing unmatched industry insight and connections. Versique believes that people are more than just resumes, they are transformative, unlocking the potential for organizational growth and success. Now let's find your people together. Learn more about Versique at versique.com. When you think of a typical CPA firm, you probably think of tax planning. Well, that just scratches the surface of what Boulay offers their clients. By providing smart, in-depth thinking from experts in accounting, audit, tax, and business consulting, they know what it takes to achieve financial success. Whether it's protecting your business, building your wealth, or securing your future, you can count on Boulay to go beyond addressing just financial matters and providing you with tailor-made, workable solutions. Learn about all they have to offer at bouleygroup.com. Boulay, helping you get there.
Are you looking for an insurance partner who is as invested in your success as you are? Christensen Group is Minnesota's largest employee-owned independent insurance agency. Since 1952, we've been connecting businesses and individuals with tailored expertise and solutions to manage risk and protect what matters most. Ready to get ahead of your risk? Call Christensen Group today at 952-653-1000. Christensen Group Insurance, because better tomorrows start with thoughtful todays.
In addition to our amazing, prospering, and thriving level supporters, we want to shine a spotlight on our equally awesome evolving level supporters. Alliant, Bauer Design Build, Beyond Design, Cox Insurance, EOS, specifically Justin Cox, Tom Holleran, and Mike Jones, Madera Partners, Modern Foundation, and Sales Homie. All of the Coalition 9 community supporters can be found on our website at coalition9.com/community-supporters, or you can find the tab at the top. All right, we're back here with Heather. Let's dive into these 9 questions because, like I said before the break, I think I got some stuff that I might even take a little bit of a departure from the initial question and ask something if it pops up based on something I had kind of locked and loaded. So before we get going, can you confirm to me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
This is true. I have no idea. I can't wait.
Do you work good in situations like this, or does this stuff freak you out?
I'm pretty good with it, but if I don't know the answer, I get sort of frozen.
All right. Well,
so I'll tell you if I'm freezing.
All right. Well, if you're frozen, no one's going to know because we're just going to clean it up on production. Anyway,
okay.
All right. Little on-air production meeting there. All right. So let's get started. Number 1, name one song that when it comes on the radio, you have to sing out loud, regardless of who you're with.
David Bowie. If it's a god awful love affair.
Really? And that's awesome. God, that's funny. I was just listening to some David Bowie over the weekend, and it's ironic you say that because it's been years since I've sat and listened to any of his albums.
I know, and the only reason that comes to mind is because when my sister and brother and I were little, we did a road trip with my mom, and my brother hated David Bowie, and so of course my sister and I played it.
Yeah, right.
and sang that song at least 500 times to bother him.
Isn't it funny how those like hearing that songs like that, or the experience partnered with music helps you remember the song, or hits you in the right spot. We went to Florida when I was a kid, and we listened to Paul Simon Graceland over. And I have a feeling you're probably a Paul Simon fan. I'm a huge Paul Simon fan.
I am,
and yes. That album. I get goosebumps right now just talking about it. That is just one of those albums that. Probably the same feeling that you have when it comes to David Bowie and specifically that song of just it's all about like the experience and everything in combination with the music.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Good.
Yeah.
Good. What was your first car?
I had an MGB, little convertible. And, I was a bit spoiled growing up. And so I really wanted it was a vintage car. It had an 8-track. So, I'm not that old, but I think it was built in like 1968, this car. And I got the car in 1985 when I turned 16.
Cool.
So yeah,
cool.
It was
cool
a
car.
Dark green little convertible. I tooted around.
Flying around that chain of lakes.
Yeah, I was.
Heck yeah. I can picture it in my head. I don't know. So I don't know if you guys watched a lot of TV. I got a feeling that maybe their TV wasn't on a ton in your family. I'm getting a little bit of a vibe that wasn't a thing. However, I'm still going to ask this question. What was your favorite cartoon or TV show as a child?
So we didn't watch a lot of TV, but my parents were both full-time physicians. So we had to entertain ourselves when we got off from school. Yeah. So we would, if we were locked out, we would find a window that was unlocked and climb through it and all that stuff. And we would watch the Brady Bunch.
Oh, yeah.
So that was our show.
That's a good, wholesome show, right?
Yeah. Brady Bunch, Marsha Brady.
Nice. Now, Marsha, right? Marsha. What is one of your hidden talents?
I am an oil painter. So I love oil painting. And I do that when I can. It's my release.
It is. That is your, so no, I don't think I'm asking it here. No, I'm not. But that's usually one of those questions that I ask is like, where's your happy place? Or what do you do to inspire creativity or something like that? You would kind of identify oil painting as one of those things that just it allows you to just it's almost like a meditation, right?
It is. And, you mentioned earlier, I take walks, and that's how I met Nancy, with how I met you. She and I take a lot of walks, and I go in the woods. I live in Minneapolis, and I walk in Worth Park a lot, and I get creative ideas there. So yeah, lately I've been doing a series of, if you look at the trees in the winter, sometimes the branches make hearts with the negative space. Different branches coming together make a heart. So I've been painting that, and it's really fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'd love to see that sometime. That is super cool. If you could do something for a living other than what you do right now, what would it be?
I'd be an oil painter.
All right. I was wondering if that was going to be that.
Yeah, 100%.
I thought about that, but yeah, that'd be a super cool. Oh, that'd be awesome to be able to take a passion. Do you think that if you were to make that your job, that it would change the dynamic of how you approach oil painting?
little bit of a departure from the original question, but
Well,
one of those things is like, you have a passion in something that you love to do, but then you turn it into something that you have to do. I think you have to make sure that you're maintaining that want to do versus have to do.
mhm. So I think I have a huge amount of discipline. I mean, my perseverance is strong. And one of the things I didn't tell you is I'm dyslexic. So that's a huge reason for my perseverance. And so if I was an oil painter full time, I would still have that perseverance and passion and dedication. But what would change it is I would have to sell it.
Mm.
That would change the whole thing. Because if I'm making a living oil painting, I have to sell them. Now, if I could just paint,
Right.
and that wasn't an issue, then it wouldn't change at all. I would be happy all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm just curious.
Yeah.
You never know how people approach that. And so a very thoughtful response, not surprised. What is your biggest pet peeve?
When people chew really loudly.
God, I'm sitting here all ready to like having it be something from communication or like when people use ums and ahs or something like that. And here it's when you got loud chewer.
Yeah, I want to just throw a rock at them.
Oh, it's so great. That was a great curveball. Nice job, Heather. That was awesome. All right, so let's flip that then and go the inverse of that. So what is a quality in a person that impresses you?
Curiosity. If someone is curious, that's really compelling to me.
Yeah. And do you ever find yourself like wanting to match wits, almost like because you're a highly curious person, to where it's like, oh, I want to equally I want to level up my curiosity so that, I think that's what kind of creates between two hyper curious people, is that creates a really dynamic conversation, because it almost goes back to your, to using that pen of like in identifying it as rather than a problem than the product, is that you get two hyper curious people, you can just really solve a lot of things or just really seek to understand each other at a deeper level.
Yes, absolutely. You can go so deep fast, and it's compelling. You learn a lot about each other, about the world, about different philosophies. It's very, very interesting.
I think I'm kind of in this phase this year. I'm trying to do more studies on religion and different world religions, and I'm finding myself just asking dumb questions because, like, if I don't ask the dumb questions, who's going to? And as long as I feel safe asking that person, I think there's something in even nebulous topics like that, or even like highly emotional topics like that, that like curiosity plays such a pivotal role in that relationship.
It's so true. And I'm glad you bring that up about exploring different religions. So am I. I am Christian, but I love Taoism. So I have some great Taoist books. If you're interested, I can send you what I'm reading.
Yeah, I'm trying to do one a month. And so,
Okay.
yeah, so let's talk about that. You and I talked before we started recording about getting a walk going. So I can get them from you when we go on our walk.
That sounds great. Yeah.
All right, good. And I'm dyslexic too. So it's like, it takes me a while to hold on to those. And I typically listen to a lot of books. So maybe even just send me the titles or just download them on Audible.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. All right. That's probably a better fit. Okay. Number 8. If you could compete in one Olympic sport, summer or winter, what would it be?
I would not. I'm not competitive at all.
Not at all?
Not at all.
Not one Olympic sport?
I love sport. Like I love to do sports, but I'm not competitive. That's why I wasn't a great tennis player in high school, because I didn't really care if I won.
Yeah. Wow. See, again, another that's why I ask these questions. It's a fascinating aspect of what people answer, but choosing not to answer is your answer, which is like, I just don't really care. I love it.
Don't. I really admire people who are strong athletes. I mean, that's amazing to me. But even if I had the natural ability and also practiced, I don't have the willpower to win.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm happy if someone else wins.
Yeah. Good answer. Yeah. I love it. That, again, makes you. Love it. Okay. Last question. And I'm taking a little bit of a stab on this one. I'm fingers crossed that we're on the same page here. Who is on your Mount Rushmore of art painters?
Oh, Georgia O'Keeffe. She's amazing. I love her style. I love how her works make me feel. She's up there.
3 more.
3 more?
Yeah, Mount Rushmore. There's 4 presidents on there.
Well, that's true. My first person I emulated was Michelangelo. It's also, I mean, obviously they were very different artists, but the way he captures a story and the feeling he evokes when I look at his work is just stunning, especially his frescoes, not so much his sculptures.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a terrible memory. So I'm sort of, I can see all these images in my head, but I'm sort of drawing a blank on names.
Are you a Picasso person at all? Do you like Picasso, or is that I think Picasso is like a love. Yeah. People can either take it or leave it.
I do like Picasso, but I don't like him. So that's the dilemma. But okay, another guy who's coming to my mind is, his name will come to me in a minute. He does a lot of black and white. It's more graphic. He was like in the 20s, and his shapes would morph into something else. Is it Eggert? No, I have a poster over there.
I have a whole bunch of different. What's it called?
Like a bird will turn into a cloud, and it'll do a lot of black and white imagery together. EC. I can't remember his name. Him.
I'm looking at. Are you an Andy Warhol fan?
No, not really. He's too modern. Yeah, I should cheat and look up on my computer. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. I have two.
That's why I asked these questions. All right, I'll take the two. That's good. Yeah. Well, again, I think even George O'Keeffe and Michelangelo, you're talking about two very different styles, but I also feel like that is probably those styles are informing you in your own style, and so again, I've said this multiple times on this podcast. That's what makes you you.
Yeah, and I mean, I love impressionistic painting, but I don't have a favorite painter. I really do love that style, but it's hard to do. I've tried to do it. It's actually quite hard.
So again, that's what I love about 9 Questions. Is like these are things that would not come up in a conversation, especially on the art side of things. So you did a great job firing through those, and
thanks.
We get to see a lot of the stuff on the backside pre-production, but like you didn't take many breaks, trying to answer those. So you were ready to go. You had a strong conviction in your answers. So that's a lot about your personality as well. Yeah, I love it. As I've gotten to know you, and I probably hear more through Eric, your facilitator, just on you and how you're building your business. So I've also got a little bit of a dotted line, arm's length way of conspiring for you and cheering you on. But I want more people to learn about you and get to know you. And I think our community has grown because of people like yourself, showing up in your true, authentic way and having a positive impact on the other people in their group, and vice versa to you and how you're building your business. And that's the joy of building this community and seeing all these things flourish and grow. So I want more people to learn about you and be able to connect with you. How is the best way for people to learn about you and potentially even get to know you and connect with you?
Thanks for asking. I have a website, dartcom.net, and it's just one M. So DARTCOM.net. And you can get all the information there, connect with me that way. Also, LinkedIn is a great way. So I have a Dart communication business page. And then I also have a personal page, Heather Heefner. So those are 2 great ways. My email address is heather@dartcom.net. So that's a very direct way to reach me.
That is a very direct way, yeah. And I think if I remember right, your website, there's ways for people to contact you through there. So if they wanted to just kind of fill out the form and do that, obviously LinkedIn. I think what we're going to do is we'll just because of the way bots work and algorithms, I'm going to leave your email address off of our show notes, but people who listen to this will obviously have it. And then 2 is that we're going to link your LinkedIn profile and your website on our show notes, so people can reach out to you directly via YouTube or whatever platform they listen to podcasts on.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah.
I could do this for a lot. We try and always keep it to an hour. I think we're going to go over an hour. Like, you're a fascinating human. And I just think, the way hearing your story and it helps even just shine a little bit more of a light on who I perceived you to be versus how you shared that story, which I think is awesome. And I just thank you for being a part of the community and being a part of this show.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Aaron. And thanks for running C9. And you're a great interviewer. You made that very easy. So
I do what I can. It's going to make our walk, our matched curiosity levels will make our walk interesting, right?
I'm looking forward to that.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, on behalf of Heather, this has been the Power of 9 podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time.